Hi guys, welcome back. So in this video I'm going to be reading books by new authors, and what I mean by that is like new to me authors, not like new authors, if that makes sense. And I am actually starting this, like filming this a little bit late because I have already finished my first book, so I just wanted to like quickly talk about it and then we'll get on to the next one. But the first book I read is The Family by Marissa Kennison. I did really enjoy this read. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting. So I'm currently 47% through Crossroads by Devney Perry, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm not hooked or anything just yet. I have been reading Crossroads. I started to like really get into it yesterday. I was reading this when I was at the doctor's waiting for my appointment, and something happened and I was like, oh my god, like I need to keep reading. But I was like, no, I can't, and my doctor like was running early as well, so I was like, no, I gotta put this away. I'm now 61% through the book and I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more now. Hi guys, so it is 17th of June today, and I'm going to do a little wrap up of the books that I read for this video. So I have read 3 books for this video. I originally was planning on reading 4, but I wasn't really in the mood to read one of the other books that I'd planned on, like my options for this video. So I kind of decided that I would just leave it at 3 and then do a part 2, because there is plenty of other options that I had for this video that I still want to read. So I've got my honey and lemon tea. The first book that I read was The Family. I really enjoyed this book, but we'll do a little description of the book itself. This book follows Twig, who's grown up living in a compound called The Family in Costa Rica, and she's never left the compound before, so she's grown up there. She has literally no memories or anything of the outside world. The only stuff she knows about the outside world is everything that she's been taught from the leader of the group. And then one day she finds out that she has to marry the leader of the group, who she has referred to as her father for as long as she can remember. Now, he is not her biological father, but all the children in the compound call him father because he's the leader of the group, but also he is a father figure to quite a few of them, including Twig. And she basically finds out that she's set to marry him, and she's like, what the hell? But she doesn't really have a choice because someone tells them who they're gonna marry, they have to marry them. And then basically she gets injured one day and she ends up having to go to the hospital, and that's her first experience of being in the outside world. And then once she's there, she's kind of starting to question things, because obviously she's said certain stuff to the doctors and the nurses and the staff at the hospital, and they're thinking like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, where have you learnt this stuff? This isn't true, and stuff like that. So I really enjoyed this book. I've settled on a 3.75 as my rating, which is a really good rating. I really enjoyed reading it and I don't regret reading it, if that makes sense. I would still recommend it. I picked this up because I read a book probably about 7-ish years ago called After the Fire by Will Hill, and I absolutely love that book to pieces. You follow a main character who has basically just come out of a cult after this big like shootout with the FBI. All the children and everyone was rescued from the cult, the compound there, and you basically follow her in her life after the fire, but also you get snippets from before and chapters from before the fire where you find out about their life on the compound. And I love that book. I've read it quite a few times, and it was one of the books that got me back into reading when I was like 14, 15. So when I was looking on Goodreads, The Family actually came up in the readers also enjoyed section for After the Fire. So I was like, oh, actually, like I would love to read it because I want more books that feel like After the Fire. And yeah, so I picked this up hoping to get a similar sort of vibe, and you definitely do get a similar vibe because they're both about like young teenage girls who have lived in what is essentially a cult for their teenage life and stuff, and then as well for Twig in this book, it's her entire life. And I really enjoyed it. I definitely think like I loved the characters in this book, and I also loved just like following them throughout this weird sort of stage in life. It does move quite quickly because towards the beginning you find out that Twig finds out that she's going to be marrying Adam, and then she gets injured relatively, I don't think it's super fast, but it's not that long afterwards. It feels like the whole span of the book goes quite quickly. I'm not entirely sure how quickly. I think it's like a few weeks. That's sort of what it feels like. I did think that this would focus on something in particular, which I don't really think I can say because it technically I think would count as a spoiler. I did think it would focus on one specific thing based on the blurb, if that makes sense. However, you don't really see that much of it. That's like the main thing I didn't really love about the book. But like I said, I still enjoyed it. I would still recommend it to people. It wasn't on the same level as After the Fire in terms of just like the vibes and how much I loved the book. But then obviously it is a completely different book. It has a similar subject, but it's a different book. It's a different author's work. Obviously they're gonna be different. But based on reading that, I did enjoy that author's writing. I did enjoy the characters, and if the author was to bring out another book, I don't actually know if they have another book yet, but if they were to, I would definitely like have a look at it and see whether it's something that I want to read. And then the next book, I read my first Devney Perry book, which was Crossroads. So I originally wanted to read the first book in the Eden series as my first Devney Perry book. However, I thought they were on Kindle Unlimited and then they're not, or maybe they came off or they just never were to begin with. I picked up Crossroads, which is by the same author as the Eden series. I still definitely do want to read the Eden series, whereas Crossroads was on Kindle Unlimited, which I already have, so I was like, it works out a lot better that way. So this is a small town romance set on a ranch in Montana, which is just great vibes, like similar vibes to Chestnut Springs and Rose Hill, which are two of Elsie Silver's world/towns, if that makes sense. Similar vibes. It has still got like that small town cowboy vibe, which I really enjoy. So this follows India and West, who were childhood friends to lovers, then they just kind of stopped talking. And then years later, India returns back to the ranch in Montana as the new owner. So before, the ranch was family owned and run, and then India comes back after years of not seeing West, and she has bought the ranch. So it does have a forced proximity trope, as West works for India at this point, as well as the second chance romance. This book and the next book are both second chance romances, and I'm definitely starting to enjoy them more. I've read a couple but never really stuck with it, and you do get past chapters as well in this book. So I think you get like a current chapter and then you go back in time and you get chapters from when they were younger. I'm pretty sure that's how I remember it anyway. So you see West and India meet for the first time, and then you get chapters of everything that happened when they were teenagers, and then when they were younger, and then them growing up, and then up to the point where they stopped talking. So I rate this a 3.75 because I did enjoy it, but I found the beginning to be a little bit slow. I did enjoy the beginning, but I wasn't hooked, if that makes sense. It was one of those ones where I kept reading because I did feel like it was going to get better, which it definitely did. I'd say once I got to about halfway, maybe 40% in, I definitely started to get into it a lot more. Yeah, I ended up really enjoying it, but I did find myself enjoying it more when I was listening to it whilst I was like driving or like whatever. I found it as more more enjoyable to listen to, rather than like I really need to pick this up and read it like right now. I didn't really get to the point where I couldn't put it down, which is why it is just a 3.75. But again, I did really enjoy this, and I definitely want to read more Devoney Perry books. I did want to start off with the Eden series, but obviously it's too late to read. That's my first book by Devoney Perry now, but I definitely want to read the Eden series still. And then the last book we have is No Tomorrow. This is another second chance romance that follows Piper and Blue. They had like a whirlwind romance, and then he disappeared. They fell in love very quick and suddenly, and then he was just gone. And then 5 years later she finds him and they get back into contact again. So I loved the main characters in this story. We have a timeline that spans over about 10 years roughly, and we see Blue and Piper fall in love at the beginning of the story, and then we continue to get Piper's POV throughout the span of the rest of the years. So you have Piper's POV for the majority of the book. You don't get Blue's point of view until quite towards the end, which I really enjoyed because I felt like it added that bit of mystery. I loved this book. After I finished it, I was really happy with the ending, although I did find the last like couple hundred pages, I did feel like it was a little bit predictable. Not like 5-star or anything, because like I said, it was a little bit predictable. However, I feel like with the topics that you read about in this book and the things that the characters go through and struggle with, it's hard to not be able to predict that thing that happens, if that makes sense, because it just is. I would say with this one is definitely read the trigger warnings before you read this book, because there is a lot of heavy subjects in this book. It is not an easy or light read. Yeah, so I love the romance, and it really like demonstrates the up and downs in relationships, although it is to a very extreme level, if that makes sense. I loved Blue's character, and I felt for him. It was easy to understand why Piper loved him so much as well. Like, I wasn't sitting there thinking like, because obviously it is a second chance romance, I wasn't sitting there thinking like, why are you getting back with him? Like, I did really feel for her, but I understood why she wanted what she did, if that makes sense. Did it give me similar vibes to Ghosted, which was a 5-star read for me. I read it for my reading YouTubers 5-star reads video last year. I think it was around April-May time that I read it. I definitely read it in April because I remember reading it on a trip, but I think the video might have come out in like April, maybe May. But that was a 5-star read for me. I absolutely loved that book. They do have similar tropes and plots, if that makes sense. It also does deal with like similar things. I don't want to say like what it is because I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but if you want to know, definitely search the trigger warnings for both of those books, because like I said, they kind of deal with very similar things. I ended up rating this 4 stars. I feel like the beginning was dragged out a little bit, which is why it was a 4 rather than a 4.5. However, I still really enjoyed it. If you do start reading this and you're kind of thinking that same thing, was like like I'm not loving it, it just feels a bit slow, just keep going. Listen to it if you can. You can listen to, if you have it on your Kindle, you can get Alexa to read it to you, so you don't have to buy a separate audiobook. So if you can, I would listen to it, because that definitely helped me get through it. So yeah, once you get past like 30-40%, it's getting good. So yeah, all of these are on Kindle Unlimited, so I would recommend any and all of these books that I talked about in this video, and I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon.